Welcome to episode 1169 of The Sleeper on the Bus. I'm Justin Mason, joined as always on Sundays by Jason Collette, who I am not currently speaking to because of his jinxing of Lance Lynn last night in a group text.
Yeah, this could be a lot of uncomfortable silence. Good thing we have a third party on the podcast today, so we can actually have some communication. But there's a group text with Eno, Paul, Justin, and myself. And I'm at my nephew's state lacrosse finals last night in South Carolina, checking the box score. I'm like, Rays are being no-hit through 6 innings. It's been a while since I've had to worry about that. Texted out and it's like, hey, Lance Lynn looks like he's back from the dead. And Justin's like, oh, it's so needed this. I have him in 9 leagues. 10 runs later, now only 4 of them were his because Pedro Grifol, assuming he still has a job by the end, I don't know. It's somebody's going to have to be a victim of this, but wow, that team is bad. 10 runs in the 7th inning. And then Justin's like, I'm not even talking to you anymore. So my jinx power worked. My nephew won the state lacrosse final, which was awesome because the same team, there was a rematch against the same team as last year that beat him 21-9. And my nephew's the goalie of the team. And so this year they won 13-10. So pretty cool for that. But yeah, it was Justin's not talking to me. So we have a third party on today. And so I'm going to transfer the awkward moment of silence back to the host so he can introduce that person.
Joining us today is Michael Govier of the Enrico Palazzo podcast and FTN. Michael, welcome to the show.
All right. Now I'm on the Sleeper in the Bus version that features Jason and Justin. I've been on the Paul Spohr version, so this is a new experience for me, and I'm happy to fill all of the awkward silence because I'm very loud, and it'll be annoying, and people will probably turn it off. So maybe we'll just end the show early. Who knows?
Hey, Michael, you're not as loud as our friends from Kansas City that were at the AFL. Remember those friends?
Yeah. Well, that was a gaggle. That was quite a group of loud people. I definitely remember them. That was fun. We had a good time there. In between all the chaos with those ladies, I do remember a beautiful base hit by Heston Kierstad. That's what stood out to me the most that night, oddly enough. But those ladies, they were a lot of fun. They were good sports, too.
Indeed, they were.
Michael, why don't you remind everybody where to reach on social media and then talk about what you do in the industry, because you are one of my favorite people in the industry, and we were roommates in Vegas. It was a fun to hang out with you all weekend. Got to see you in New York. You are just a ball of energy. Where can people find your work?
Yeah, we had a running gag that I was sleeping every time Justin saw me, and I never saw him when I was awake, except outside. He was always on the move. We have different sleeping schedules, I will say that. But it was a lovely time, and I enjoyed the whole experience in Vegas like I do every year. You guys can talk to me on MJ Govier on Twitter if you want. Of course, the Palazzo Podcast is my home base for fantasy baseball. 2 L's, 2 Z's. Follow us on Twitter. The Discord is free. We're pumping in there. We got a lot of great people. You get free advice all day long in our Discord. And then at FTN, I read a weekly piece, FTNFantasy.com, Groovin' with Govier. That was the title we came up with. And basically, it's a weekly roundup. So if you want a look around what's going on in fantasy baseball, what just happened, what's coming up, it's a great way to pop in and check out my article. I like to have fun, have a few jokes mixed in. But Groovin' with Govier at FTN Fantasy is a good time.
Definitely go follow Michael. And if you haven't listened to the Enrico Palazzo podcast, go give it a listen. It's definitely a fun podcast. You're going to learn a lot. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Michael. We are going to discuss this week's FAAB, but first we have some news items to kind of cover. And it's not good news. It is mostly bad news. We'll start off with the big news, which is Jacob deGrom is going to the IL with an elbow/forearm issue. This is the dreaded precursor stuff to Tommy John, which is pretty scary considering his kind of elbow history, especially in recent years. Govier, how worried are you about Jacob deGrom right now?
Gotta be terrified, but this is the price of admission. So, yes, I'm worried, but I didn't really get on board outside of, I think, one draft late. I'm like, you know what? I want to get one piece, one share of the experience that is rostering Jacob deGrom. So I did do that. But other than that, I don't have him anywhere else. But certainly the fear is high and strong, and I expect the worst, but somehow he always seems to avoid it the last few years. But you got to feel like at this point, I think it might come down to a possible TJ. But we can't make that assumption because we don't know that. But I'm hoping that he can kind of bounce back and maybe be back in 2 months suddenly. Maybe like there's been guys like Jesus Luzardo. He went down, had the forearm strain. I mean, it wasn't exactly the same issue that deGrom has here. And he came back a couple months later last year and was serviceable. So it's not totally a nightmare. Or DEFCON 1? Is 1 the worst? I can't remember which DEFCON's the worst. But I would be excited.
5's the worst.
5's the worst. Okay, good.
Zero is all good. 5 is like, uh-oh.
Okay, well, I'd say
hope
it's
I have that
DEFCON
right.
4. I feel like DEFCON 1 was the worst in war games. That's how I learned about it. So the only reason I know what DEFCON is.
Oh, wait, I think you're right.
Is
DEFCON 1 is cocked pistol. DEFCON 2 is fast-paced. DEFCON 1, nuclear war is imminent.
Well, then we're at a 2.
Oh, wow, I was right. I was wrong. You were correct here. Okay.
We're at a 2. War games. See, movies do teach you things that are accurate, but I'm at a 2 right now. I'm pretty nervous.
What about you, Jason? How nervous are you on deGrom?
I didn't take him anywhere. Did not take him anywhere in the season because this, as Michael said, this is the price of admission. When I was on the Beat the Shift podcast this week, Ariel Cohen was talking that day, like we recorded Thursday night. That day, I forgot who he traded. I'm like, you might as well because we know he's going to go home. And when home, I mean the IL. And 24 hours later, he was there. So, yeah, this is what you know you're going to get. As I said on that podcast, if you could remove all the health issues, he's the best pitcher in baseball and arguably a 1-1 player. If we knew we could get 200-something inning at him, we can't. We can't. And this is why he was a free agent as long as he was, because everybody knew that this was eventually where it was heading.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, you have to be petrified. The only place I have him is in the Raz Slam, which is a best ball league. And so I wanted one share, but I think at this point, you're holding on at least for a week or two. But like in NFBC, where you only have a 7 bench, you don't have any IL, I can understand dropping him and moving on. I don't think you want to necessarily do that, but most people right now are not untouched by injury. If you are playing fantasy baseball this year, you have a lot of red, whether it be a red case or just a red IL letters on your roster. And so it can be really difficult to hold a guy who's going to be out for 2 months. And if we know he's going to be out for 2 months, then I think he's probably going to be.
It's difficult to hold a guy that's going to be out for a month. I've already dropped Mitch Garver in 2 leagues.
Yeah.
And I like him. Yeah. It's like it's a month out. And this is the league where he's 2 games shy of becoming catcher eligible. And I cannot hold out because it's going to be a month until he comes back. And then probably another 2 weeks before he gets the 2 games that he needs before I can use him at catcher. He's gone. I'm going to probably end up paying for him twice in a couple of these leagues, but it is what it is. I cannot, I know we're all dealing with carrying multiple guys. And last year, this is what did in a few of my teams is I sat on some of these guys too long. Now it's when in doubt, cut. Sorry if you paid twice for them.
Yep.
Yeah. Some people might, depending on your situation, I know we're going to talk about FAAB too, but some people are saying, hey, just switch over to Dane Dunning now. But by the way, Dane Dunning's K9 is horrendous to start this year, even though he has an ERA under 2, but he's got a FIP of 3.31. So it looks like maybe a little bit of smoke and mirrors here. I wouldn't be too motivated to say the solution to my deGrom problem is Dane Dunning.
There are some solutions potentially on the waiver wire this week. We're going to talk about them when we get to FAAB. This is a big pitching week in terms of picking up guys. So with a bunch of young rookies making their debuts in the last week. So let's move on to the next guy. Another pitcher, Kenta Maeda, finally goes to the IL. This time with a triceps strain. For me, I'm dropping him if I have him anywhere. I don't have him anywhere, as people know from listening. This was a guy I was avoiding coming into the season, coming off of Tommy John surgery. So, Jason, where are you at on Kenta Maeda? Is he a drop for you because of this injury?
Did we not tell Eno to drop him in our group thread?
Yep.
So back to our group text. It was last week. He was like, "Hey, what should I do with Maeda?" All of us said drop, and Eno's like, "I'm going to be conservative bid." And then not only did Maeda get hurt, but he got blown up before he got hurt in a big way. So he was a drop. I said last weekend he was a drop. He's still a drop. And this was the move. Bailey Ober came up yesterday, pitched well. I didn't see the final box score, but I was listening to that game on my drive down to Columbia yesterday, and it certainly sounded like he was pitching well to that aspect. So that was all ready to move. Hopefully, because he pitched yesterday, he should be available for FAAB tonight because he's in. He may have already been there because this is his second time up because he was on a yo-yo trip a little bit. So, no, I was already out on him, had him nowhere, and Ober's a better guy anyhow.
What about you, Michael? Where are you out of Maeda, and are you picking up Ober?
Jason Collette is correct. Bailey Ober is the proper way to go right now. Unfortunately, for someone who, I have to admit this on the air. I've admitted it before on the Palazzo podcast, and I'll tell anybody because the mistakes I make are as important as the triumphs because you learn from them. But you got to keep it real because all these analysts out here, they're telling you, hey, I did this, and here's my victory lap. Those are fun, but there's a lot of mistakes being made, and I always want to be transparent about that. I kept Kenta Maeda in my home league, which is it's a 14-team 5x5 head-to-head, and kept him after the 2020 season. Remember how great he was, the bozo season, shortened season. I kept him over Corbin Burns, and that was really stupid, and I don't know how I ended up making that choice. And ever since then, I've been a little bit bitter towards Kenta Maeda, which is probably unnecessary, I admit. But Bailey Ober is clearly the guy that you would rather have in this situation, and I would say don't even look back. Like, just say goodbye to Maeda. If you can get Ober and replace him in that way with the teammate, that makes a lot more sense. I love Ober so much. That stat line was rock solid. He had 6 Ks. He pitched well yesterday. He didn't get the win, but kept the ratios low. Ober's got a nasty slider. I like that pitch a lot. So let's say goodbye to Kenta Maeda. I have him in, I think, 2 leagues, Justin, and I have IL spot in one of them, so I don't have to drop him. But the other one, I will be dropping him and saying, I don't want to deal with this year. I got other things to do.
Yeah. Kerry Carpenter is hitting the IL with a shoulder sprain. This is a little bit disappointing because he's shown some flashes of a player who could be really, really interesting, especially in your deeper leagues in fantasy. Michael, you're a Tigers fan, so how disappointed are you with this, and are you dropping him?
I love Kerry Carpenter. I drafted him a lot, not just because, I'm very, very much against my Tigers. I loathe the owner, Chris Ilitch. I think he's a scumbag. He's an entitled douche. So I'm not a fan of him. Yeah, let me get clear on how I really feel, Jason. Kerry Carpenter is somebody I thought would give a little bit more in terms of batting average because he could hit for average. He's getting a lot of credit for the pop he showed last year. But beyond the pop, I thought there was some more contact in there. We didn't quite see that so far, but we saw the power. And I assume if you have Kerry Carpenter, you're probably in at least a 15-team league, most likely. I not owned or rostered to 12-teamers, so I am pro Kerry Carpenter. I like his profile. I'm a fan of his work, but this is a guy that you could drop and move on from. He's not that important, I would assume, unless you're in like a super deep league.
Jason?
I like him too. The problem is he plays in the Tigers. I mean, they have 3.3 runs a game. They are one of the lowest scoring, if not the lowest. I believe they are, in fact, the lowest scoring offense.
I posted this last night, Jason. I posted this, tweeted this last night. The Rays have scored 186 runs.
I did see that.
The Tigers have scored 85.
Yes, they are the lowest scoring team in the league. They are generating 3.3 runs a game, and they're allowing 5 a game. That's not a great recipe when you're giving up 1.7 runs more than you're scoring. And no, I like the player. I just hate the conditions.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think he's a drop. He'll be out there on the waiver wire if and when he does get healthy. And you can always go back and try to pick him up if he comes back. But shoulder injuries rarely end up really, really well. So I think he could miss an extended period of time. He's not the kind of guy, especially on that offense, that you want to be holding for a long period of time. A last piece of news, Pete Fairbanks has a flare-up due to Raynauds syndrome. Jason, this is one of your guys, so how worried are you on this?
Yeah, damn Darius Reynard syndrome. That's for you football guys or you West Virginia football fans. In all seriousness with him, I guess the good news is this isn't an injury. This is a condition. And if you're not familiar with the condition, you may remember Brendan Woodruff having the problem, and he was out a while. It's basically a circulation thing where sometimes in colder weather you lose feeling in your fingers. And listening to him pitch, I wasn't watching that game because I was going to AHL hockey playoffs and listening, actually on the way home from the game. And we were listening to it, and even the radio announcers noticed, hey, he's throwing a lot of sliders. Like he hit somebody with his fastball. I forgot who he hit, but there was a hit by batter, and then he wasn't commanding his fastball, and then it was slider. And then Kevin Cash came out and said, nah, and Fairbanks didn't want to leave, but they pulled him out. And he didn't pitch yesterday. The good news is they're coming home this week, so they're back to 72 degrees and indoor controlled environment, which is how all baseball should be played. And haters suck it. I don't want to hear it. But that's it. He should be fine. Right now, it's not great. I would say, even taking off my rose-colored glasses, Fairbanks has not been sharp this season. Now, understand what they're 23-5, and he's had 4 save chances. 4, because the wins have just been so lopsided. He has not been able to get into games. And so some of that could be rust, but he has not been the dominant guy I thought I was going to get. The good news is, A, he hasn't been hurt, and B, he still hasn't been scored upon. He's almost 30 straight innings going back to last season without being scored upon, but he has not been the guy that I thought I was getting when I drafted him in 84 of my 10 leagues this year. So that's what I have to say about that.
Jason, before I move it over to Michael, if he does hit the IL because of this, who do you think is next up for Tampa, or is it just going to be spread around?
So to quote one of my league friends, Ryan, on a tweet reply to me, I just have a couple things. I have a couple of questions. One, how dare you? Why would you even say that? Why would you bring that on? But in all seriousness, it would be the standard operating procedure. Okay, that guy's out. Everybody else has got a chance for saves. Let's not forget, when Fairbanks came out of that game, a Rule 5 pick, Kevin Kelly, got the save. He came out and got Luis Robert to pop up on the infield, and that was the game. So a Rule 5 pick got a save chance. So it could be anybody else. Don't look for any one particular guy. Not worth your time.
Michael, where are you at on Fairbanks, and what are you doing with that Tampa bullpen if he does go on the IL?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I have no idea who Kevin Kelly was until I looked up who got the save to close that out. So you knew more than I did. A Rule 5 pick. That's fun. And he went to James Madison. Nice area. But for me, I didn't have any Fairbanks shares this year. I don't like the Tampa closer situation. Yeah, it was somebody took them all before I had a chance to. I forgot to mention how motivated I was. No, I was just not interested. I let Jason draft Fairbanks everywhere, because I don't want to mess with the race situation. Even if Fairbanks could partially be the guy at times, I'll go elsewhere. You know, I last night I talked about Alexis Diaz. I'm happy to go there. The Reds stink, but he's a guy that I feel really comfortable with, oddly enough. And maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that'll go to hell this year.
He said one bad outing, one, and everything else has been utterly dominant. Like, he's like, oh, hey, sorry, big bro. I know you're hurt. I'm out for the year. You're out for the year. I'm just going to take that crown and wear it this year. He had one bad outing against Philly, and everything else has been absolutely dominant.
That's crazy, because it's Edwin didn't go well for him. Raisel Iglesias, there's a lot of top closers things didn't go well for. But to focus here on Fairbanks, I would hang tight for now, but because I don't see this being a major issue like Jason said. Although his Ks per 9 is down a great deal. I know it's a tiny sample size of 7 innings, but that's noticeable. I don't know if that's just a fluke or what, but it's something to keep an eye on. You can't drop him right now, and he should probably be back sooner than later. I don't think it's that big a deal. But Jason Adam would be the guy that I would immediately go to. And they also brought in Javi Guerra from the Brewers. That doesn't excite me whatsoever, but it is worth noting that they traded for him.
He was there last year. I think he was. I believe he was one of the guys who did get a save for the team last year. But Javi Guerra was with the team last year. So yeah, I saw they make.
Isn't that part of being a part of the Rays bullpen? Hey, if you're part of the Rays bullpen, everybody gets a save. It's like Oprah, you know.
They did add him. They're adding him to the 26-man roster. So he did not get a save. I apologize. He has 0 career saves, but he does have. Like I said, he pitched for the team last year. For some reason, they wanted him back.
Yeah, I think I mean, people know that I was not in on Fairbanks coming into the season. It was just a guy that I was a little bit too afraid of in terms of injury and potential usage with that Tampa Bay bullpen. I think Jason Adam probably leads the team in saves if Fairbanks does end up going to the IL while Fairbanks is out. But I agree with you guys that it's probably spread around and not super interesting. All right, Jason, you have a monthly stat update for us.
I do. So you guys, for those who follow me on Twitter, I've been putting daily updates out on stats. And so the month is coming to a close. And that daily update is really going to become more of a weekly update, but I am going to continue looking at steals on a daily basis because that to me is the biggest story because that's sticking on the field. I mean, the pace of play and all that, that's one thing, but the steals is noticeable. We have the stolen base attempts, and that is when the next base is open and how often they're running. They're running 30% more frequently than they did last year and 47% more frequently than they did. When I say last year, I mean last March, April. So 30% over last March, April, 47% over March, April of 2021. And so they're moving. The success rate has been at or above 80% all month, save 2 days where it was 79%. So last year it was 75%, but this year it's been right now on the aggregate, it's 80%, and they're running. And, we can obviously thank the Dodgers and Padres for a lot of that because they can't throw anybody out. They are absolutely terrible at that. I've been posting a stat the last couple of days on net steals, and that is the offense stolen base minus caught stealing minus the pitching staff's caught stealing and stolen bases allowed. The Dodgers have a negative 25 score. They are the worst in baseball. Next is the Padres at negative 13. Best in the league, Arizona. They have a net 19. They are 25 of 30 on the base pass, and they are 8 of 15 in preventing steals. So they're doing well. Dodgers are doing terrible. Hopefully this Corbin Carroll knee tweak from last night's not much, because when the Dodgers play the Diamondbacks, it could be a lot of fun. The Dodgers and Padres, so we talk about two immovable objects. Those two are hitting one another next week, or maybe later this week. And so it's going to be fun to see what happens in that series, because neither of these guys are controlling any offense. So that's really happening in steals. And one of the other things I noticed looking at some of the offense, and this may be part of the pitch clock, pace of play, whatever, but like hit by batters, we are 10. Right now, we've had 363 batters hit this season. The record in recent years is 373, and that was in 2021. Coming out of 2021 wasn't coming out of the strike. It was last year, but still, we're only 10 away from breaking that record, and that would happen in just a few more games. So that was one of the things I happen to notice. But home run wise, we're at 924 home runs. Even if you take away the 11. Yeah, I said that 11 home runs that were hit in Mexico City yesterday. That still gives us one more home run than the 2018 season. We're not touching 2019. It is not going to be a repeat of 2019 unless it gets really hot this summer and stuff starts taking off. Now, I will say, Justin, you live in a continually cool climate for the most part. Michael, you're in Michigan on the border between two countries. It's always going to be cool. It has been unseasonably cool and damp here in Charlotte. And I know there's been a lot of rainouts lately because this stupid system is sitting all over the East Coast and whatnot. So maybe as it heats up, something could happen. But we are definitely up over last year. Now, to understand the context, last year we had 574 home runs hit. We've had 924 hit already. So, and the home run per contact went from 3.7 to 4.5%. And so ball is flying a lot more than last year. It's just not 2019 level. It is 2021 level. It is 2018 level, but 2019 appears like it's going to be an anomaly unless we have some environmental factors come into play there. But stolen bases are absolutely here to stay. I would say one of the things league batting average isn't where we thought it would be, because like right now, league-wide batting average is 246. And a big part of that, and I don't know how to explain this, last week, the BABIP on ground balls was 219. Now here's the order of the BABIP on ground balls. Opening weekend 232, then it went to 234, then it went to 244, then it went to 250, and all of a sudden it went to 219. How do you go 31 points like that? And then this week it is back up to 256. So it's like I don't understand it, but we've had the league-wide batting average as high as 250. But right now it's been like 245, 246. And so I don't know if it is leagues adjusting to it, because I've seen some more aggressive shifting where they're pretty much right as far as they can go on some of these things. But positioning, it seems like they've made an adjustment. But this variability over the last couple of weeks, I don't know how to explain it, but it's been really weird. So that's my statistical update for the month. It has been a fun month. I do like the brand of baseball we're seeing. I would say as much preaching as they're like, oh, more action, more stuff in play. The 3 true come out rate, the three true outcomes. So walks, strikeouts, and hits are balls in play. It's 34.9% right now this season. This time last year, it was 34.3. So that's not happening. It's still it's still a walk, strike. I'm sorry, 3 true outcome, walk, strikeout, or home run, rather. So it's a little higher than last year. And then 2 years ago, it was 36.4%. So we're not there, but it's not having the year-over-year adjustment like we're hearing on the repeated commercials. If you listen to a lot of games, I've been in the car lately, so I've been listening to a lot of games, and it's like, oh, there's more action, more balls. No, not really. Not as much as you say it is. There is more steals. That's here to stay. I don't see that going anywhere, but everything else is kind of leveling off.
Wow, that's amazing. Can I add one thing? I've been doing a stolen base focus myself, doing bonus episodes for Palazzo. So I was really interested in what you were saying there, Jason. And the Dodgers, who didn't know that they're terrible, that's good to know. But they actually started stealing more recently, all of a sudden. Like, they were way down at the bottom for steals, and then over the last week, they kind of took off, and they stole 6 bases. I think they were stuck at the bottom with the Twins and the Rockies, because I had just done an episode earlier in the week about that. And then Brenton Doyle comes up, and I said this out loud on my podcast earlier the week when he came up. I'm like, the Rockies don't run, so why would you expect Doyle to be the guy who gets to run more? But then lo and behold, he's got like 3 steals here, and suddenly he's like, he's the Rockies' source of stolen bases. It's wild how this fluctuation changes, whose philosophy is going to be ironclad, airtight, that they're going to stick to. Like Rocco Baldelli, we know he's not going to steal. The Twins are not going to steal bags. But other than that, it seems like week to week there could be teams that kind of shoot up and down.
Yeah, indeed. And as when Doyle had his good game, I tweeted out "Bedoyle rules" because I had to drop a Billy Madison reference with nice. That. But yeah, it's like the Dodgers I think they were 9 of 14, and then they're 5 of their last 5, so they're 14 of 18. The problem is they are 6 of 41 in preventing it. 6 of 41. And so when I tweeted that a couple days ago, people are like, "Oh, hey, the Noah Syndergaard effect." Yes, Syndergaard has allowed 8 steals and 8 tries. He hasn't thrown anybody, or 9 for 9 rather. He's not alone. Christian Javier is 0 for 8. If you get on base against Christian Javier, take off. You got it. The base is yours. And there's a few guys. Nate Eovaldi is like that. So there's a few guys like that. But, you mentioned the Twins, Michael. It's everybody. Take away Michael A. Taylor from that roster, and we have as many steals as the Twins do. Nelson Cruz has more steals than the entire roster not named Michael A. Taylor in Minnesota. It is uncanny how that team is just simply not running unless it's Taylor. Now, again, somebody asked why. Well, Buxton is not running. Hell, he's not even close to shagging fly balls in center field. He's DHing. Nick Gordon can't steal first, so he can't steal second or third. And Polanco is just coming back from injury. And who else on that team is going to run? That may be like somebody may get one, but again, if Nelson Cruz can steal a base, I'm really holding out hope that Daniel Vogelbach gets that stolen base. I hope he has another series against the Dodgers or the Padres, something where he could take advantage, because those two teams really stick out as teams that aren't doing it. Now, I know that early on the Red Sox were the team we all picked on, but Connor Wong has made a difference. It's not like Reese McGuire is bad behind the plate, but Connor Wong has stop the bleeding that was going on in Boston. If you recall, opening week, Baltimore was just like windmilling. It's go, go, go. And Connor Wong is definitely helping. That's why Connor Wong's in the lineup more these days. But the Dodgers, it's not happening. And Will Smith coming back is not going to fix that. You look at the new caught stealing above average board that Baseball Savant put out this week. And Will Smith's a -4 since the start of last season. So this is an issue with the Dodgers, and they're going to have to fix it on the pitching side. And that's one of the things. One of my friends, Rob, was watching an interview the other day, and Dave Roberts kind of admitted this. The other coach basically kind of said, we figured out the Dodgers. And Dave Roberts was like, yeah, we've got to work on this. So it's kind of like they've seen something, because right now their best caught stealing prevention is Clayton Kershaw on the mound, because he doesn't allow base runners. He's got a really good move. Clayton Kershaw pitches once every 5 days, and everybody else is getting run on.
All right. That was a really good stat update, Jason, and I enjoyed that. Let's move on and start talking about some FAAB, because like I said, there are some kind of big pickups this week. Some of these guys are not going to be available in your league because, especially as we talk about Logan Allen, he might have already been picked up last week in a lot of leagues, and
or drafted.
Me
raising my hand.
A guy like Brandon Pfaadt may not be available if he's been stashed all year, but hopefully this hits the majority of leagues. Let's start off with Tanner Bibee, who came in and had a really nice first start. Struggled with the fastball command early on, but then rocked through the rest of his start. He's a top tier prospect for the Guardians, who have some openings in that rotation at the moment. Govier, what are you doing on Tanner Bibee? Are you going to get aggressive this week?
So we were talking about this, you and I, before we went on air here, and I'm not the guy who goes big on starting pitching in terms of spending $300 out of $1,000 FAAB budget. That is just not my style. I feel like it doesn't make sense depending on the situation. But then again, there is context, so I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here. I'm going to sound like a fool, because if I need Ks, I mean, Tanner Bibee seems like a solid choice for Ks, for ratios. The only question might be is, can he get enough quality starts? Because he should be able to get wins and everything else. He looks like it's everything you wanted and more. Tanner Bibee is the solution to all of our problems. But I have a lot of money left still. I didn't get too radical for the most part in most of my FAAB leagues, and I've got 18 FAAB leagues this year. It's so stupid. So that was, yeah, I know. I've been in this game for almost 4 years now. This is a rookie mistake. I don't know what I was thinking, but I got to deal with it. I got to live with it. And to me, there's so many pitchers involved here. There's a guy in AAA who just got bumped up to AAA named Gavin Williams for Cleveland, who's really, really good. Yeah. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay. Well, yep. He might flat out be better than Bibby. He might be better than all of these guys on Cleveland, outside of Bieber. But I just think you got to think about the context here. How long will Bibby be around here? Because that's really my concern. I don't know if he's going to be here for the season haul. And if I'm going to spend $400, that is something I really feel I have to have a lot of confidence in. So I'm probably going to lose most of the Bibby bids because I'm just not going to go that big.
Jason, where are you at on Tanner Bibee?
I'm the same way. I'm concerned that it could end up being another Taj Bradley situation where, oh, hey, he comes up. Oh, he does well. Oh, hey, he gets demoted. So I know a lot of people got burned with Bradley, and I'm pretty sure we warned about that possibility on this podcast. We said, hey, we don't know what could happen. He could possibly get demoted as things work out. And to be clear, I'm not even clear that Bradley comes back right away, because good news is Tyler Glasnow is going out on a rehab assignment this week. So we are close. We're close within 20 days of him coming back. And if he comes back, that takes up the opener spot. That was yesterday's game with Fauché and Chirinos. So that takes up that spot of the rotation. So I don't know when Bradley comes back. It may not be within the 20 days, because if he comes back within 20 days, he doesn't lose any service time type of thing, but it's not clear. They want him down to work on a 5-day rotation, because he was not sharp in his last outing against Houston. I watched it. Command was terrible. Then he settled down and got the last 9. The last 9 guys he faced, he looked great, but it took him a while to get to that point. And that's where it felt to me. It's like, okay, now I see why they want him to work every 5 days to get in that rotation, because the extra getting out of his, we say it all the time in this podcast, pitchers are a creature of habit. And when you get out of that habit, it takes time to adjust. And when you're a kid, as he is, it takes even a little more time to adjust. And that's what we saw happen in front of him. So no, I'm not going to be aggressive on Bibee. I will be competitive. But that said, I was in one of my other leagues, I was competitive with Mason Miller and ended up winning him. But in some of my other leagues with the exact same bid, I got blown out of the water. Every league is different. It's kind of crazy. I didn't think I was going to win him, and I ended up getting him. I'm like, oh, okay. It was just a kind of like, checking in poker. Not that I'm a great poker player, but it's like, I'll stay around, check. I ended up with Mason Miller.
Yeah, this is hard for me, because my advice has been all season, since we started the season, don't be overly aggressive in FAAB early. It just leaves you in such a hole, especially now. Obviously, if you're in a league where you have $0 bids. So I want to like separate the two. In league of $0 bids, you can be as aggressive as you want, because at the end of the day, if you run at a FAAB, you're still going to be able to pick guys up. In leagues where you don't have $0 bids, leaving yourself with very little money down the stretch is going to hurt. Especially when you're doing these kind of things early. In my main event right now, there's a guy with less than $200 and a few guys who are less than $400 already.
I've heard some guys in double digits already.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
Guys that have blown over $900.
And that you're not going to be competitive unless you get really, really lucky down the stretch, with injuries and just performance in general. So I just think it is a bad practice. Now, why I said I'm in kind of a little bit of a pickle is I know in like my main event, which is doing fairly well, especially offensively, and in my NFBC auction, which again is doing very well in both pitching and hitting, I know the weakness is pitching. And now I'm staring at, these waiver wires where you've got Bibee and Allen, who are potentially, game-changing pitchers rest of the way if they're up. But the big caveat is how long are these guys up for? Because do you want to blow $300 in FAAB and then find out next week or in 2 weeks that they're going to be sent down because Aaron Savali comes back, or they just decide they want to play service time games or whatever, worst case scenario, they get hurt. Pitchers get hurt very often. So I have a really hard time going over $200 or 20% of your FAAB. If you're in a $100 FAAB league, $20 on a pitcher, especially a young pitcher. But I can definitely understand it. And I am thoroughly debating, while we've been recording, I've been looking at my FAAB page going, man, how much do I put on it? Because especially my main event league, I need pitching. I need pitching bad. I've had Jose Suarez and Michael Kopech, and these guys need to come off my roster. And am I willing to spend the $200+ I think they're probably going to go for? I don't know. I honestly don't. It's probably going to be a game time decision, but I want to be fully transparent, though, even though I've said all season long that I am reluctant to spend this kind of money, especially early. I am definitely considering it because of the situation my pitching staffs are in.
I'm sure your story applies to a lot of people about the situation my pitching staff is in, whether it's injuries or whether it's underperformance from some other guys, because how many different pitchers are struggling this season. How many, I think I mentioned this last week, or I know I've mentioned on Twitter, how many big blowups are we seeing in the first inning? Another 5 spot from somebody yesterday in the first inning. And it wasn't the Mexico City game. There's another 5 spot. And that's where it gets.
That was a nightmare. Oh my God. That was the
home run that Juan Soto hit. I'm like, that's a line drive that should be caught by the center fielder, not even moving. And the ball just never came down.
The second one that Machado hit was just
I just happened. I was looking at a video. I'm like, what did I just see? It's like it's gone.
It wasn't even like a full on like power swing. I was like, oh, that's gonna get. Oh, whoa, that went 20 feet over the fence. Like,
well, remember, it's 7,200 feet altitude up there with normal dimensions.
It's like playing on the moon right now. Like it's just.
I will say this. I don't want to start an argument here, but been a lot of guys that have been useful pitching products this month too. Like Eduardo Rodriguez, if you got him, Mackenzie Gore.
Oh yeah. No. There absolutely have been some surprises, but it's like Justin mentioned one of the names, Michael Kopech. He looks so good in spring. I remember being super disappointed when Joe Sheehan and I got into a bidding war, and Sheehan ended up winning them in labor. I was like, man, that was one of the guys I was targeting, and that didn't work out. But when the stat I wanted to mention was when I was looking at first inning, why the blowups and how it's so weird. The ERA in first innings this year by starting pitching is 4.99. The good news is that's as low as it's been. It was over 5. It was 5.24 when I looked at this last week. So we've had a lot of early inning blowups, and it is the highest ERA by any inning of any of the innings. 4.73 in the third inning, 4.76 in the fourth. But it's been a lot of early blowups in some of these guys. And when they do that, like the Maeda one we referenced earlier, Rocco Baldelli just left him out there. And because he had, I want to say he gave up a 5 or 6 spot in the first inning, and they let him throw 2 more innings, and he ended up getting up to 9 or 10 earned runs. And they're like, all right, finally, go ahead, come out. And ratios are what used to be a good ratio. Not even, it's the bar has definitely moved this year on pitching, and we're still trying to adjust as a league. The league's still trying to adjust, and fantasy managers are still trying to adjust.
Well, and I want to like point out, like, there are a number of guys that, like, Mackenzie Gore is a really, really good example. Like, his ERA is 3, right? Like, he has been fantastic from an ERA standpoint. He's got a 130 whip. Like, like there are a lot of guys who you drafted really, really highly that are pitching really, really poorly. And so, like, there are definitely teams out there who are like, what are you talking about? Pitching's bad. Pitching's great. I got Graham Ashcraft and, all these guys that have been great.
Oh, before I forget, trade Yusei Kikuchi, by the way. This is my advice to everybody. Get rid of Yusei Kikuchi now.
Well,
and if I'm wrong, come back and be like, Collette, what the hell were you talking about? But I broke this down on Beat the Shift podcast. I wrote about it at Roto Wire this past week. Trade Yusei Kikuchi before you're left holding the bag.
That's beautiful. And I will say that we all should have just drafted Spencer Strider. Clearly, that's what we all should have done.
That's the answer. So, speaking of Cleveland pitchers who have come up and pitched well in their first go-around, we've got Logan Allen, who has looked pretty good. He is going to have a start at New York, which makes him a little bit less enticing for next week. But just in general, where are you at on picking up Logan Allen there, Jason?
Love it. This is what I mentioned earlier. I drafted him in my AL keeper league. He was in the reserve rounds. There are not enough superlatives to describe how Cleveland prepares their starting pitching. They do such a great job of, Michael mentioned Gavin Williams and how they've turned. He was not that he was a bum at ECU. He was great there, but they've taken him and gotten another level out of him. They continue to find something with these pitchers, get them ready and get them into a program and accentuate what they do better. Now, not every single guy hits the magic formula, but there's enough of a track record in Cleveland where they call somebody up and they're ready. And Allen has certainly showed that he belongs at this level. And I'm excited. If I had to choose between these two guys, I'm more aggressive with Allen than I am Bibby or Bibee. I need to be better on names.
Michael, where are you at on Logan Allen?
Yeah, that's solid advice. You could probably get Allen I'm sure you'll get Allen for less if he's available in your league. And I don't know how much of a disparity there would be between the two. You're right, Jason. And I have to say, we got to be aware of all these other pitchers. Again, Aaron Savale, Tristan McKenzie throwing a bullpen this weekend, I believe. They're going to be on the mend. They're going to be back. Yeah. McKenzie and Savale are locks to come back to rotation because they've earned that right, whether you agree with that or not.
Is Savale
I don't know about Savale. I think
McKenzie
back on Savale.
I think he gets a shot. I think he gets a shot to come back. So I'm not saying he could lose that opportunity, but I believe that Francona will give him a shot. But then again, if you got all these guys kicking so much butt and you're like, you know what, Savale, we just need you here now. Be a veteran. Do us a solid. But at the same time, they could go the other way because they don't want to. Tanner Bibee debuted last year, and he's moved up the ranks super, super quick. He did pitch 130 or so innings combined last year, so he's not somebody who didn't pitch much last season. Just got to think about that. With Logan Allen, I love his stuff, but again, those two guys I mentioned. Hunter Gaddis is in the mix. I know he wasn't very good. He got sent back down. Peyton Battenfield, he's in the mix. There's a bunch of guys. I'm just saying, you think of all these pitchers they've got, how long will even Logan Allen last? I don't know that we could trust that Allen will last that much longer than Bibee, though Allen has a bit more experience, so maybe he could be around longer. I think it's a real mess. I bid on Logan Allen last week in one of my leagues and picked him up, and I'm glad I got him. So I'm happy there. But I'm not going to go too nuts with Allen, but I'll be a little more aggressive. But that still means spending at least probably 50% less than I would on Bibee.
Hey, can I add a bit of breaking injury news?
Yeah, absolutely.
The guy that almost had a no-hitter earlier this week, Easton McGee, to the IL, right forearm strain.
And I take him off my.
Taylor Trammell just got activated, and McGee went to the IL with a right forearm strain. So it's
yay, more
another
Taylor
one bites
Trammell.
the dust. But Trammell's back in the outfield rotation.
Yay.
Yay, yeah. It's not been a fun year for injuries. I like Logan Allen a lot. He's been really impressive so far through his first couple of starts. I kind of think he might, and I think you guys are alluding to this, he might be the second man sent down out of the two because he was the first man up. I mean, he's got a little bit more, professional pitching experience as well. So I think Bibby has a little bit of a higher upside than Allen, but I think the floor is a little bit safer. So it kind of depends on what you're shooting for right there. If you're in a shallower league, maybe you lean Bibby, and in a deeper league, you lean Allen because there's a chance he's around for longer. But I do think there is the risk, right? This is, rookie pitcher could easily get sent back down. We know that Cleveland tends to be an organization that really values kind of their veteran starting pitchers. Look how long it took Tristan McKenzie to get up and stick. So I do think that there are some risks here, but I also know that I'm probably going to try to get somewhat aggressive, at least on them in FAAB this week because of the state personally of my own pitching. So if you're in my situation, I understand you doing that as well. Brandon Pfaadt isn't up yet, but we expect him to be up here at some point in the very near future. The Arizona Diamondbacks DFA, future Hall of Famer Madison Bumgarner, probably not future Hall of Famer Madison Bumgarner, but at what point do you think that Pfaadt is up there, Michael? And are you stashing him in leagues where he's available?
Oh, yeah. Well, wherever I could stash him to where it made sense. If I had bonus spots, non-NFBC, that's definitely something I've been doing. And I'm really excited to see him make his debut. The rumors are flying now that by May 9th he could be up, right? That's kind of the word around the campfire.
Why are they waiting a week? What am I missing?
Well, worst case scenario, yeah, I don't know. You're right. I don't have the answer to that. I just heard by May 9th, but it could happen sooner. It should happen sooner, right?
One would hope it should happen last week.
Yes, I know. Well,
it should have happened to start the season, to be quite honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'm with you. I mean, Dre Jameson could pitch out of the pen, and I think he's really good out of the pen. He's really nice there. And I am all about – I looked this up, too. Supposedly it is Brandon Pfaadt. Pfaadt. Hey, we fought. Me and Brandon fought. Okay. I have fought like hell to get Brandon Pfaadt on my squad all season long. I'm so totally excited about him. I have no doubts about his talent. I guess the only question will be is how much we'll get out of him this year. But if he's coming up later, I'm expecting we can get 100 innings out of him this year. That'd be really, really nice. I'm all in. I'm ready to rock.
Well, the Diamondbacks do have 2 days off this week, so it may just be a matter of they don't need that fifth starter until May 9th. So that's probably, if May 9th is the goal, that's probably where it's at or why it's at that point. Because they will run with a pretty they have a pretty big schedule. They have games every day from May 5th to May 17th. So maybe May 9th is that kind of spot where they go finally, well, we need a fifth starter here for the next few weeks, and we'll bring up Pfaadt. So, Jason, where are you at on Pfaadt? Are you stashing him if he's available?
I have him in TGFBI, and he is on my bench. He's been on my bench, and I have refused to cut him. So that tells you where I'm at with him. And this is the league where I had Brandon Woodruff, and I don't have him back yet. And I currently have Wade Miley, Braxton Garrett, and Sean Manaea on the bench. Thank God I benched him. I kind of forgot that game was in Mexico City, but thank God I had already benched him. So that was. But I had to eat the Matthew Boyd start yesterday, and I did get the nice game from Alex Cobb this week, and so yeah, I got Dean Kramer as well this week too. That wasn't great, but I have Pfaadt sitting there, and I have refused to cut him the last couple of weeks, and he is staying there until he gets called up.
Jason, let me ask you something real quick about Cobb, because I have him in my main event, and I was torn whether to start him this week for his two-step. It ended up being an amazing shutout on Monday, but now he's in Mexico City today, and I'm terrified. What did you think of that?
I'm absolutely terrified, too. I mean, if any pitcher should be able to survive it, it's him, the way he keeps the ball down. That said, anything that's up in the air, as we saw, 11 home runs. And that's where, like I said, me benching Manaea was accidental. I did not realize that Mexico City game was this weekend. Had I known that with Cobb, I would have been like, okay, here, Garrett. I would have done anybody else. But when I look at this week, it's like Miley's an easy cut. He's at Colorado. Bye. And it's like I had him for a 2-start week. He's gone. Garrett, one start this week against Atlanta. He's probably gone too. And Manaya's got Milwaukee. I may recycle my entire TGFBI pitching staff.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty ugly.
It's going to be he's going to break even on a shutout, a complete game shutout for the week. That's just going to be
awesome.
Yeah.
He had a 4.50 ERA for the week. What do you want, right? A shutout and a 7.50 on the other, or a 9 on the other end.
So crazy.
Yeah, it's I mean, at least you got the complete game shutout, because that should outweigh whatever happens today, because at least it'll be like, if it's bad, it's going to be like Musgrove, where he's only going to be in there for like 3 1/3 or something like that.
Yes. So pull the plug.
You can mitigate that damage a little bit. As far as Pfaadt goes, I mean, I think he is if he's available in your league, you need to be grabbing him, whatever the cost. I think he's a really, really good pitcher from the get-go. It's a good place to pitch. It's a good team that's up and coming right now. So go grab Pfaadt. Let's move on to some relievers. Will Smith got another save. I wonder if there's a changing of the guard in Texas at that closer position. Leclerc can be wild at times and unpredictable. Bruce Bochy has history with Will Smith as his closer in San Francisco. Govier, where you at on Will Smith? You grabbing him off the wire?
I think you just nailed it. The history there. Bruce Bochy feels comfortable with Will Smith. It's so funny that Will Smith is going to be the guy now, but he was left off a playoff roster last year, right? I mean, didn't that happen? It's weird.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how that happens, but he's pitching well, and Bochy has the trust. And sometimes, as a closer, the confidence your manager has in you is a big boost. I know he's a veteran. He's not a rookie, but still, that matters. So for a mentality, Will Smith, I think, has a better mentality, and we've seen Will Smith give us full production seasons with legit 30-plus save seasons. Jose Leclerc, I am that guy. I was for so long. I was the Jose Leclerc guy. Like, all right, he's going to do it this year. He's going to have a great save season. He's going to rack up 30-plus saves. It's all going to come together, and it never does. It never has. The best he ever did was 14 saves in 2019. So, to me, Will Smith is the better option, and it might not even be that close.
Jason, where are you at on Will Smith?
Yeah, in the time that we just talked about that, Jose Leclerc just walked all 3 of us. And that's really where it comes down to. He can't throw straight. Will Smith they have 4 saves as a team, and Will Smith has 3 of them. Will Smith, you look at the numbers, and it's pretty easy to see, yep, that's the guy I'm going to go with. Everything else that Michael said, the history, everything, again, just stare on paper, remove the names. Which one of those guys? I want the guy number 3. Well, number 3 is Will Smith. And nothing else to say about that. I know a few guys, when the signing happened, we're like, maybe, who knows? But it's worked out. He's doing well. Now, the issue, what's going to happen? The thing I'm having a tough time balancing, and it's only 9 innings, a 19% ground ball rate. 19 with a 91% left on base percentage. So as long as he can keep the ball in the ballpark, he should have saves. But that's where the risk, and I don't know what else is going to happen, but nobody else is really standing out. Ian Kennedy has had some issues. He blew one the other day. Brock Burke has been okay, just hasn't been striking out anybody. Cole Reagans has had issues with walks as well. Stuff looks good, but has had problems keeping guys off base. So for the time being, ride Will Smith and see what else happens.
Even when Will Smith had his 37 saves 2 years ago, you just got me motivated to look at this. I mean, he was giving up less dongs, and the ground ball rate was better. It was at 31% during his 37 saves in 2021. So that is interesting, but, it's only the first month of the season. Maybe things could straighten out for him.
Right.
I mean, this one feels weird to me because I picked up Will Smith after he got his first save in week 1, and I dropped Aroldis Chapman. Aroldis Chapman's looked so good that I've been lamenting the fact that I made that decision, but it looks like it's going to turn out to be the right decision, and I've luckily held on to Will
for
Smith.
now until what were we talking about the other day? Was it last week on this show? We talked about where they need to trade Will Chapman to the Angels.
Either the Angels or the Dodgers, and that may still end up being the wrong decision down the stretch. But right now, it feels like it's okay with Chapman only having 1 save, Barlow getting the save yesterday. So, I think Will Smith could be the guy. I also think that this could be a very fluid situation that changes hands 3 or 4 more times throughout the season. So if you're looking for short-term saves, I think Will Smith is probably the best answer on the wire this week. And maybe it turns into a long-term situation, but maybe it turns into the Rangers aren't competing this year, and they trade him to be a left-handed reliever on a team with already established closers. So that becomes a problem, but that's a problem for down the road. If you're looking for saves right now, I think Will Smith is a pretty good answer. Nick Anderson could be in line for some short-term saves if you really need short-term saves, because AJ Minter has struggled as of late. Rosario Iglesias is on his way back, and so this is probably like a week, worth of saves at max. Jason, any interest in picking up Nick Anderson?
Yeah, Nick. Did we end up, Rob and I in our league, I think we ended up getting him last week. He's looked better. Obviously, when last we saw him, he was dragging his arm off the mound in the World Series in 2020. When Kevin Cash brought him in for the 10th time in that series, in that 6-game series. So that was problematic. But the eye test says he's looked better, but the overall numbers said he had. I mean, the overall numbers don't paint the same picture. It's like the velocity, he's still not throwing upper 90s. I don't think that's ever coming back. But the other stuff, like he is really leaning on his curveball more than he ever has. I'm looking at his StatCast page right now, and he's become more of a breaking ball pitcher. So for a short-term solution, strikeout rate, walk rate, whiff rate, all in the top 90th percentile, but then everything else. And this is what happens with relievers because it's such a small sample size where like you get like 2 hard hit balls out of 10, and all of a sudden your average exit velocity is a single digit. And this, this went back to like, I remember the year that Jake McGee had a bunch of saves for the Dodgers, and everybody's like, oh, but that exit velocity. Well, he didn't have a lot of batted balls in play, and the ones he did, sure, they got hit, but he missed a whole bunch of bats. So this happens with some of those things. So short-term solution if you're looking to plug a gap, like especially if you're the Raisel Iglesias owner and you're waiting for that, waiting for him to come back, then because Minter absolutely has not looked good. I was at the game Friday night, a week ago Friday, with one of our listeners, Jeff, and his son, and watched that game and watched him give up that home run to Yordan Alvarez. But Minter, the entrance music, all that's great, but the results have not been. I think he's allowed 10 earned runs here over the last week and a half, and has not looked good.
Michael, are you picking up Anderson for short-term save relief?
Hell no, I'm not going to waste my time. Look what happened here. Basically, the whole series got wiped out between the Mets and the Braves. They've been off for days now. Maybe that'll actually be good for Minter. Maybe he'll be, okay, I feel better now. I needed a break. Things got out of control here. I totally blew it against the Marlins on Thursday. Not saying that's a guarantee, but look, I'm not picking up Anderson when Raisel's basically ready to go. He could be ready to go any minute now. He's looking sharp in his rehab. He's doing his thing, so I would rather stick it out with Minter for one more week, see if this break helps. I benched him in my main event this week. I did not play him, but I didn't cut him. So that's basically tells you everything you need to know about what I was thinking related to Minter. No Anderson for me.
Yeah, I just think it's such a short-term situation that I probably don't want to outside of maybe those fastest finger waiver wire leagues where you're just picking up a guy and then you can just drop him right away. But Iglesias might be back here very, very quickly. And so I just don't know that Anderson is going to offer enough to waste any FAAB on him. Dollar bid in a $1,000 FAAB league, fine, or even $100 FAAB league, whatever, but ultimately I'm probably looking elsewhere. There are waiver wires where Michael Fulmer has been dropped, or even like Pierce Johnson, guys like that. I think I'd rather, take a gamble that those guys get into the role or get back into the role. All right. I'm gonna butcher this name. Yennier Cano has been fantastic in this year. He is, I believe, is not walked a batter or allowed a hit yet. He is clearly next man up if something happens to Felix Bautista. Any interest in stashing Cano there, Michael?
I'm not going to stash him, no. It would depend on the league. I mean, in a holds league, he's already rostered for sure because he's been outstanding. And then if you're in a saves league only, Bautista is absolutely the guy. And barring injury, that's what it would take. So to me, I got to let Cano stay on the bench. Unless I play in a type of league where it's head-to-head, where I can fix up my ratios a bit by using a few relievers, I would use him in those situations for sure. Head-to-head cats, I'm pro adding Cano to the roster and maybe sneaking in a win and getting me some ratio love. But other than that, he's great. He's a lot of fun. That's about it for me here.
Jason, you play in some AL only leagues. Is Cano a guy that might be more interesting to you?
Bought him for $9 last night. So my local AL 11 team, we run FAAB on Saturday nights, and I won the bid at $9. And I was aggressive with him because this is a keeper league. So if something were to happen with Bautista, then hey, next guy up, this could be it. And I did see him pitch a couple of times. I saw our buddy Alex Fast happily tweeting about some of his stuff. Like I said, he hasn't allowed a hit. That said, last year he allowed plenty of them. You look at the numbers last year, and the league hit 400 off his sinker. And when I'm trying to look for like, hey, what's changed? Right now, nothing. He's still sinker, slider, changeup. But if you've listened to our former co-host emeritus Eno Saris over on his podcast, he talks about how sinker, slider, changeup is like the new thing for relievers. You can get it. You can do this. This is you got one thing going one way, one thing going another, and one thing going down. It's like if you can tunnel them up and everything, it works out really well. And so that appears what he's doing, because he's throwing a lot of sinkers right now and pretty much nothing else when I'm looking at his graph. But there's nothing new here. Like, oh, hey, here's a new splitter. Here's a new nothing. It's just it's out there, and he's doing this. So the results are fine now. But I bought him in a deep AL league as insurance, and he's still pitching high leverage. He's earned that, and he's in there getting that stuff done. So I'm willing to take this dart. Previously, since we're all talking about mistakes we've made, like Justin, you talked about dropping Chapman. Michael, you talked about the Burns move. Like previously, these are the types of guys I'm like, nah, I'll let somebody else take a chance. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I remember this time last year, we're like, hey, Bautista was looking good. Or whenever before Bautista took the role, it's like, let somebody else take a chance. And now look what he's doing. So it's like when you have the chance, you see a guy who passes the eye test, take a chance. So I did.
Yeah, I mean, right now Bautista is still like a top 5 to 10 closer, so like he's not being supplanted like at any point. But if he were to go down, if something were to happen, then I think Cano is easily next man up. But there's very few types of leagues where you're rostering something like that. So if you're in a league where you roster these kind of high leverage relievers, or maybe like you're in head-to-head categories and you're like, well, screw my starting pitchers getting blown up, I'm just gonna like put in these high leverage middle relievers. He makes sense in leagues like that, but I just don't, unless something happens with Bautista, I just don't think he's going to get
Ben Clemens has got a really good article on the site as well. It's a great title. It's Yennier Cano is Cano joke. I love the puns, but he's got a couple of nice animations in here, talks about it, and his closing sentence is really good, where he talks about, but if you're wondering why hitting is so hard, Cano is a great example. He was unplayably bad last year. He started throwing the ball in the strike zone more often, and voila, hitters shutdown unhittable shutdown reliever. It's like, that's baseball. I guess kind of like the Ben Rooker of pitching, where Ben Rooker was, nobody's using him, and now Ben Rooker, his numbers are unreal for Oakland because he's getting a chance, and he's right now in a couple of weeks, he's had a great season where the career has been very nondescript until these last couple of weeks. You're like, holy crap, look at this.
Yeah, Brent Rooker will be unrosterable by June. I'm calling it now.
Yeah, plus, absolutely.
Cano is 29 years old. He's not a newbie. I'm just throwing that out there as well.
Oh yeah, that if he was in the I forgot the trade, Jorge Lopez. He was what part of the return that Baltimore got for Jorge Lopez.
Seems to work out fairly well. All right, let's move over to some offense. Not as much to pick up in offense this week, so this will be a little bit shorter.
No joke.
However, Ezequiel Duran, who is a utility guy in Texas, is playing regularly, and he's currently hitting 357, 400, 571 in the last 2 weeks with 2 home runs and 2 stolen bases. Govier, are you picking up Ezequiel Duran?
Hell yeah, I already was. I love Duran. I loved him last year. I rode him for many weeks last year. He faded a bit, and Josh Smith got more in the mix. Josh H. Smith, that is. And I got to tell you, man, Duran is the kind of guy that could really help your squad because he's got a lot of positional eligibility. He can hit for some pop. He gets on base. He is just the kind of guy that seems to continually make things happen. My kind of guy. I've always been a fan since I first connected with Ezequiel Duran last year. This is a guy that can service your team with class and dignity and statistical outcomes that you need, which is really the most important thing. Forget class, forget dignity. We want output more than anything. I got to be honest about that.
Jason, are you in on Duran?
I'm in on both. The same thing would apply to Jarren Duran too. But Ezequiel Duran was somebody to watch this time last year, and Duran has certainly distinguished himself from Josh. We should take the H out because there's no hits in Josh's game. All right, now he's like one for a bunch right now. But Duran was, if you recall, there was that competition where one of these guys was going to do something. Well, Duran's definitely has distinguished himself and is getting that playing time. So yeah, I would be aggressive. And I kind of chuckled when you said like there's nothing out there, because in Tout Wars I have so AL Tout Wars 12-team league. I have Tyler Wade at shortstop, who was designated for assignment last night. I have Aledmus Diaz on my bench, who is going to the IL with a hamstring injury. So I go to the free agent pile to say, hey, who's at shortstop eligible? I need a warm body. There is literally zero. There is nobody. You go shortstop and hit submit and no results come up. I have no option at shortstop. So I either have to make a trade, and Doug Dennis has already reached out and says, hey, I've got Xander Kiner-Falefa or Tyler Wells, Taylor Wells. I don't care. It's like, if the guy has a pulse, I'll take him right now. But I literally cannot pick up anybody because I noticed that this week, that particular position, we didn't really think of shortstop as something in the AL, like, all the focus is on third base. Well, shortstop got thin in a hurry with all the injuries at shortstop, with Seager gone, with Anderson gone. And like everybody's backups are now in the starting lineup. David Fletcher was never, but you had to draft him. Somebody had to. Well, so all of these different guys are up, and it's like, oh my God, I just need a shortstop, and I have nobody. So yeah, I'm desperately trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. I may just take a 0 this week and be like, who knows? But it's really crazy on this end. But I do like Duran quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that Duran is an interesting short-term pickup. The underlying skills are not good. Like, he's swinging outside of the zone like 43% of the time. He's super, super hot right now, but only making league average contact in the zone. He's striking out at 26% rate, which is kind of backed up by the 13% swing and strike rate. He's only walking 1.6% of the time. This is a utility guy that is hot right now, but that works, especially because the Rangers have a couple injuries with guys like, Seager, who's going to be still out for at least another 2 to 3 weeks, according to their manager. And so like, he's probably going to play a fair amount. There is power. There is speed. I think the batting average is going to regress pretty sharply down to like the 230 area. So that plays, especially because he's about to pick up a bunch of eligibilities. I think he's played 7 games at shortstop and 7 games at second base, I want to say. I should actually double check that to make sure that I'm not giving improper information. Sorry, 7 games in the outfield, 7 games at shortstop. He's already got third base eligibility in most formats. Like that, those are really nice eligibilities. But I do think that this is a hot streak that will come crumbling down at some point, because I don't love the contact ability here on Duran. So, sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Speaking of guys who are on a hot streak, Eddie Rosario is hitting the ball pretty well in Atlanta and playing fairly regularly. I like the laugh there, Govier. So I'll start with you. Any interest in Eddie Rosario?
Everybody can thank me because I dropped him in my Auto Neo League like 10 days ago, and ever since then, he has just taken off. I'm like, $7? Why am I wasting it? I took over an Auto Neo team in the offseason, and I finally got rid of him, and he is taking flight. And I thought Sam Hilliard would be the guy, but looks like Eddie is making things happen. So I'm not going to pick up Eddie Rosario. Maybe I'm a fool, and maybe I need to revisit that. But as of whatever time it is right now on Sunday, I have no intentions of picking up Eddie Rosario. But for those of you who do pick him up and have him rostered, enjoy.
Jason, you picking up Eddie Rosario?
Yeah, I kind of have to, because when I look at it, since Michael Harris came back on Friday, and obviously he goes right back in the lineup, and then since he's been back, Sam Hilliard has not played the last 2 games. Now, I have not seen the match. I don't know if, well, never mind. We had a rain out Friday. I'm trying to talk through. Thursday was against a lefty, and Hilliard didn't play, which is what we would expect. Friday, rain out. Yesterday, rain out. And so it could be a platoon, because honestly, everybody's played well in this situation. Kevin Pillar's played really well, both, at the plate and defensively in this rotation. The only person who's not playing well in Atlanta is the guy they should have DFA'd in the offseason, which is Ozuna. But everybody else, I don't know if Rosario is going to get, right now he's been in the lineup every single day this week. But again, we don't know. It could be a platoon situation with Hilliard. They're going to want to make time for Pilar. Pilar's hit 8th the last 2 games that this team has played with it. So I don't know. In a 15-team, yes. In a 12-team, no.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, yes, he's hitting better like over this last week, but it's all like it's been atrocious. Other than that, like, you know what I mean, we're talking about a truly atrocious plate skills to make Ezequiel Duran look like he's got good plate skills. So, like at this point, like I'm not super confident that this isn't just going to go right back into the tank for Eddie Rosario. Is, you know, in spite of the fact that I've loved him in the past, I'm not buying this. I'm not picking up Eddie Rosario. All right, Brenton Doyle, a guy that Govier mentioned earlier in the show, has been playing well, and he's getting some playing time in Colorado. Jason, any interest in picking up Brenton Doyle?
Yes, because he has time in Colorado this week. That's part of so it's a week by week decision type of thing. But they've got at least 3 games at home this week. Last time I looked, and so I will take the chance. And today is the first day he has not been in the lineup, but he's been out there. He was in 7th or 8th spot each of the past 5 days. Today, not in the lineup. I guess it's Sunday, so Harold Castro's got to play, or center field. Randall Grichuk's playing center field. So even with Grichuk's return this week, Doyle was still in the lineup the very next day with that. And as Michael mentioned, he's actually running, unlike most of that roster. So I will give him a chance until he's no longer around.
What about you, Govier?
I'm not opposed to it. I might throw a few cheap bids in some 15-team leagues. If I need steals, yes, he's got 3 games at home, and then it's off to New York to take on the Mets. 6 games this week. I'm mildly interested, and I'll try to take advantage of it where I need to fill a few outfield spots, depending on if they have 5-game weeks, because I'd rather have a guy who has 6 than a guy who has 5. Of course, I wouldn't replace Doyle with his 6 games over Mike Trout, who has 5 games, but you know what I mean.
I think this is going to be really telling early on in the week because with Grichuk back, I do wonder if Doyle becomes a short side platoon bat. And if that's the case, you obviously don't want him. They're going to be going up against 2 straight righties. I believe if I'm correct here, in their first games. Of course, they've got they're going to go against Lauer, then Peralta, then Adrian Hauser. So 2 righties and a lefty. And then we'll get to see in the back end of that week, Colorado's facing the Mets. They've got Lucchesi, McGill, and then Max Scherzer coming off of suspension. So we're going to have a pretty good idea by the end of the week whether or not he's a full-time player still or a short-side platoon guy. I worry it's a short-side platoon. I don't know that I want to get overly invested in Doyle.
I will say this real quick. Lauer got crushed by my Bozo Tigers. Crushed the other day. So if Lauer's going to Coors, that is enticing from an offensive perspective.
There you go. You might want to just pick him up just for that, and then you can make a determination at the end of the week, depending on how many games he's played. If he's only played in 3 games this week, though, that's going to be pretty disappointing, even if he does have a big game against Lauer.
That's true.
All right. Let's finish off with former top prospect Nick Senzel, who's been hot since returning from the IL, where he makes his home most of the season. Govier, any interest in Nick Senzel?
Oh, man. Come on. This guy just won't go away. He will not go away. It's the night of living dead. The night of the living Nick Senzel. And I've already picked him up a couple times last week. So, yeah. I'm a sucker. This guy ruined my home league in 2021. I bet so much on him and Nick Solak in 2021, and I held on to them way too long. And by then, my season was lost. And I blame Nick Senzel for at least 48% of that. But right now, he's swinging a good bat, and he's got an opportunity in the lineup. I mean, a lot of the mess. Remember 2 years ago, it was, you had Aristides Aquino, right? And then,
Punisher.
Yeah, and the guy, who's the guy who came over from Japan? He was there, and he was a total flop. But there's just a lot of guys. I'm talking about. He didn't really do much.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just a a lot of options in the outfield, but now it seems like it's a lot clearer. So they're playing Senzel. He's at San Diego and home against the White Sox. And again, just like Coors, anytime the Reds are at home, I'm into that. It's not that far off from me, and I know the Reds haven't been as dominant or as powerful at home, but it's coming. It's going to get there. The weather will pick up. So, yeah, I'm pro Nick Senzel because he's also going to get you third base eligibility soon, I believe.
Well, double up there, too, because you just said the magic word, the White Sox. He gets to face White Sox pitching, too. It's like, could you ask for anything better?
No.
As long as, I mean, even Dylan Cease, you know, I've watched both because the Rays and White Sox have played twice now in the last 10 days. So I've 2 series rather. So I've seen these guys in repetition. Dylan Cease has been a disaster in both outings. I did not watch Lance Lynn, but when you have 6 no-hit innings, sorry, Justin, and I do have him in AL labor. So
that's right. I'm not supposed to be talking.
Yeah,
to you.
I felt your pain in AL labor. But so it's, I say Giolito has probably looked the best of them all. But it's once you get to the bullpen, all bets are off.
Ooh.
I mean, Ronaldo Lopez has looked fine, but they've lost 10 straight. He's pitching in no leverage opportunities for the most part. They've lost 10 straight. But yeah, the rest of that bullpen, the in between of that pen is an absolute disaster right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Senzel, I think, is an interesting guy in deeper formats. I think they're going to give him every opportunity to play. But like it's mediocre production at best. I think it is aided. It's going to be aided by that park when it's good, and then when it's bad, he's going to be unplayable. So I don't know that I'm super interested in him outside of just streaming at home in some good matchups. So not super interested in Nick Senzel.
Shogo Akiyama was the guy.
Yeah, there you go.
I was about to say
that's the name.
It was Shogo Akiyama. Who man, I was so high on him. Like
yeah.
He's also the reason why, or one of the reasons why I was like, I'm just not going to invest in Yoshida or Kenta Maeda, or not Kenta Maeda, Senga this year because I just need to see guys play at the major league level before I'm willing to take the gamble that they're going to be good.
Not everybody makes the transition smoothly. Mm-hmm. Every guy's different. You're right.
We look at Kim. I mean, I thought Kim was going to be a star too.
Yes,
coming up from Korea, and he's been fine. Like he's been a decent, major league player, but not the fantasy goodness that we thought.
That's been dumbed down by when he first showed up, Kim was this guy's getting signed to a major contract. He's gonna be a big deal for the Padres. Now that contract's been blown out of the water by like 5 other contracts the Padres have signed,
right?
And his reputation, I would say, has been dumbed down by his just decentness. He's not amazing, so it's just.
I think we forget that, like, the KBO is like single A or double A, depending on how strong of a team you're playing, and and Japan is kind of like double A or triple A, depending on what kind of team you're playing. And if you're a 26-year-old murdering single A, double A, or triple A, like it's not as exciting as we make it out to be when these guys come over. Now, every once in a while, you do get the Daisuke's or the Shoheis, but I think more often than not, we've got guys who are just beating up on not quality competition for the most part. So
true.
All right, that is going to wrap us up for this episode. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, this was a blast. I'm so glad I got to come back on the show. Thanks for having me on, Justin and Jason. Make sure you guys check out the Palazzo Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's. We're doing new episodes every week. I do a prospect show, and I do a weekly big show, tribute to Dan Patrick and the guy formerly known as Keith Olbermann. He used to be just a really good sportscaster. I don't know what he is now. But at any rate, check out the Palazzo Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's. And, of course, my weekly Fantasy Baseball Roundup, FTNFantasy.com, Groovy with Govier. And follow me on Twitter at MJ Govier. Hit me up about anything, too. If you just want to talk about anything having nothing to do with fantasy baseball, shoot me a DM. I'm down. I like to talk on occasion.
There you go. You also have another couple podcasts. You want to promote those as well?
Sure, yeah. I do all these pods. If you go to MJ Govier, you can see the 4 pods are on my Twitter banner. I do a movie pod. I also do the First Day pod with my lovely wife, Leanne. We talk about life and trying to, figure this thing out. Maybe do a little bit better than we did the day before. And, not being too hard on ourselves. First Day pod's a lot of fun.
Definitely go check all of those podcasts and his written work over at FTN out. Jason, where can you be reached and what are you working on?
I'm working on trying to find a shortstop. But I'm still doing as I mentioned earlier during the stat update segment, I'll be doing more focused on the steals, but doing by week. I want to see, April showers bring May flowers. Like, what are we going to see in May, and how is it? Are we seeing a trend? Like this week, obviously, there's been more offense, Mexico City aside, that we're seeing a recovery in some of the balls in play thing. So I want to see where things are going and how that's going to go. So I'll be changing that up a bit in the weekly installment. Collect calls. RotoWire is still going on, and I don't believe I have any other podcasts guest appearances this week, but I did do the Beat the Shift podcast with Ariel Cohen and Ruven on Thursday night. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that, check that one out.
And you can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. I am writing daily at Fangraphs, and I am writing 3 times a week at Fantasy Pros, also on the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast and TGFBI podcast, if and when I record that one, which is pretty sporadic at best. So that will wrap us up for this episode. For Michael, Jason, myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
Take care.